I think about that with noise in a house or a mess on Christmas morning, and I go, those are good things. Many people may not think about that, but there's going to be a day when you're not going to have a mess on Christmas morning, and you're going to miss it.
I've been pretty lucky and successful with those kind of things, though. I don't know how exactly it happened to me. I'm not going to take credit for it, but I always get to this. I always view extremely difficult struggles and, I don't know, stuff that other people would call problems or dire or poor circumstances. I just automatically view them as something that I like.
Yeah, you find something in there. Find something that even if it's ordering something that you're not crazy about, and you get the food and it's not great, you could even say, well, I'm glad it's not liver and onions.
Yeah.
so you're going, because I really dislike that. So
Yeah.
that's a hard mentality to find a rainbow in every weather.
Yeah, the silver lining, the optimism, right? But I think my insanity goes even deeper than that. Because, it seems like so many people around me are often praying that things go smooth. I hope I can just go here and do that, go there and do what I need to do and get home and relax and everything goes smooth. I hate it when that happens. Most of the time I catch myself wanting shit to go wrong. I'm like, man, I hope something pops up to where I can, I don't know, do something about it. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, that's an unusual thing. But I will say, most of my greatest adventures have come when something's gone wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
And
your best memories too, right?
Yeah. If you tell a story and you're telling a bunch of people and you go, yeah, I was planning to go to Germany and I got on a plane in Detroit and I flew right there. It was a great flight. The flight was smooth and I had great service and I leaned the seat back the whole way.
Right.
And then when I got there, I was in Germany and it was wonderful. But if somebody says, oh my God, so they lost my luggage and I got on the plane and the plane got halfway there. We had an emergency landing and you go, oh dude, I want to hear the rest of this story.
That's right, man. The interesting, compelling story, the hero story. It has things that go wrong, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told you before, the best stories in life never start with, so I was sitting in my lazy boy.
Yeah, yeah.
there's those,
and the whole story takes place in my lazy boy.
Yeah, that's and the end, so I do see that. I do see what you're saying. I just don't want to go flat tires or anything.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, man, why'd I wish for this?
Yeah.
Dang it.
The Willy Wonka, the original Willy Wonka, and he said, what about the boy that got everything he ever dreamed of? And then he said, he lived happily ever after. and so you go, sometimes with the things you wish for and the things that if you wish for, maybe some conflict or wish for something, I would prefer to say, for me to, if I thought that way, instead of saying something go wrong, I would say maybe wishing for an adventure or wishing for something interesting to happen.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And so that would be the way I would probably present that.
Yep. If you really think about it on purpose, you'd be like, man, I hope something really cool happens out of the ordinary, unexpected awesomeness. Yeah.
And if you're thinking that way, you're going to notice when it does happen.
That's true. Yeah, and that's sort of like a definition of voluntary exploration into the unknown, which I think is what man, there's a lot of treasures to be found there.
I heard someone say that. Have you been out driving around? Like, let's say yesterday, were you out driving around the city at all to do any errands or anything?
Yeah.
How many red cars did you see yesterday?
I don't know.
You don't know. But today, if I told you, when you drive around, I'll give you $50 for every red car that you spot,
Yeah. Incentivize my attention.
you'd keep track of it.
Sure.
Well, the same thing goes for if you were looking for opportunities, if you were looking for interesting things or looking for attention, you will find them more if you're looking for them.
You're right. 100% right. And, you know, this is an argument that I make. It's my argument for why a person should have a vision for the future, a specific vision. Doesn't necessarily have to be a goal or something, but it's because, you know, the unlimited amount of possible things around us. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like what's happening around us and our senses is mostly complete. But there's almost an infinite amount of possibilities of things you could pay attention to.
Oh, for sure. If you, and it's a perspective.
Yeah.
Because if you walked through downtown Kokomo every day, same route, same exact way you go every day. You leave your house, you walk this way, you walk that way, you turn left on this street, you turn right on Main Street, you walk around and you come back every day. And eventually it's just rote. But if you take, and by the same token, if you take tomorrow and walk it backwards, it's the same streets, it's the same buildings, it's the same things, but it's going to look different and you're going to notice things differently. And then the next time that you do that, you stay in your house and you have a drone with a camera on it and you drive it the same way that every time you saw. And this time you're looking down. It's going to look way different. It's the same streets, it's the same places, but it's a perspective of how you see things.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very true. And everything's always changing. Like everything in the universe is changing. Every cell, every square millimeter you could observe is changing. I mean, Earth's moving. So you could actually walk that path exactly the same way, and you're never, ever walking the same path. There's always something different, and you could pay attention to something different. And I think that directing our attention is what a vision does for us. It gives us an idea where to keep looking. And I think when you direct your attention towards something specifically, whatever it is, that's the way you extract from the almost infinite possibilities around you something useful, consistently.
Yeah, but you have to want that. Yeah, you have to want things to be changing. You have to want to. Now it's factual, they are, but you can go your whole life and never notice it. But you also can go, man, today, I'm going to be looking for change. I'm going to be looking for the unexpected. I'm going to be looking for the nuances in life.
Yeah, you're right about that. We all sort of have this thing where we, not only do we hope that things are complete, which they never are, we also kind of hope that things are permanent and finite. And like, okay, I'm going to get there. I'm going to arrive. Now I'm done. Now I hope nothing changes or something. That's all insanity. Really.
Think about people as they get older and they go, when I was a kid, that was a cornfield and I miss that and I miss this and things used to be like this and go, yeah, well, I can understand a little bit of nostalgia, but I'm going to tell you, nostalgia only benefits you generally because you get a little warm feeling about that, but what about the new homes that are put up there? What about the new families or the new the store where people have jobs and things?
You're saying it like when they complain about it. Like,
there's people that I wish things were like they were in the 50s, and but there's a lot of people that think that way. And what I found is no matter nostalgia changes nothing. It's not bad. It just doesn't change anything. You can look back and go, oh, yeah, when I was a kid and I did this and we used to have these traditions and go, what's a new tradition you have? Well, we don't have it. I go, well, I mean, if traditions are that important to you, start a new Christmas tradition. Start a new tradition this year.
Right. Yeah.
But so I just think that it's for me,
I think nostalgia has a specific effect too, because you know how they say time. I forget the expression I'm looking for, but it's over time essentially that things in your memory seem better than they were when you were doing them. I'm like, I think about that when people are like, oh, it was better in the 50s or whatever. I'm like,
or how many people say, oh man, high school was awesome.
Yeah, right. I'm like,
but you go back and you talk to that person,
right? Talk to anybody in high school
when they're the 10th grade. But talk to that person in the 10th grade, and they're miserable and they hate it, and everybody's bullying me, and we got whatever, and but later on, it gets a nice glossy sheen on it, and
you remember the good stuff, man,
and good. That's way better for life to not look back.
But to confuse it with the idea that you should try to go backwards, that's harmful.
Well, for sure, because guess what?
There is no backwards.
There's not. And as you said a little bit ago, even in the moments that we've been here, the world's spinning. Time has changed. The world is spinning. We're not even in the same place. And that's deep
ever-present entropy.
Yeah, and so I go, okay, well, just freaking deal with it. I'm it's a merry-go-round, and either get on or get off, and
it seems like some of us try to put our foot down and stop this merry-go-round sometimes, and nothing good will come from that. You just break your legs.
and the ones that just hang on and laugh and have fun, and I go, gosh, man, they're really they're enjoying this ride.
Yeah, and then there's people that go a step further, like me and you sometimes, that get the adventure bug about them. They're like, spin this thing faster until we fly off, man.
Wonder how many RPMs I could take.
Yes,
but
you find out.
Yeah, I just think in general, the older I get, I go, I can't affect anything before today.
Mm-hmm.
I can affect tomorrow, and I can be in today. And I kind of want to do that and just go. And then tomorrow I'll try to do it again. I don't know about tomorrow, but I'll try to do it today, and I'll try to do it again tomorrow. But I'm a guy who loves quotes. There's a quote that says, regret is only good for wallowing in.
Yeah, and that's true.
It is. And so you think about, I should have done this, or my life was like this, or what. And I go, yeah, dude, you can wallow around in that if you want to, but or you can get up and kind of wash the mud off the best you can, and it's good. You're going to be a little dirty, you have a little stains and stuff like that, but you move on.
Yeah, that's right. I like to say that guilt is like that. Guilt is like a wasp you catch in your hands. It stings you once and you learn, fine, but you have to let go.
Yeah, or you'll get it again.
You don't have to let go. Yeah, but I mean, there's consequences for hanging on to guilt and regret. You keep getting, hurt.
And some people punish themselves by hanging on to the wasp.
They do, yeah. Yep. I think the first sting's valuable. Sting of guilt could teach you something like, oh man, I know for sure I wish I wouldn't have done that, so maybe I won't in the future do that.
Yeah.
But after that, to feel guilty about something years later still, and to feel that pain over and over again every time you think of something, that can't be, I doubt that that's of good utility.
The hardest person to forgive is yourself.
Right. That's a good way to say that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's for somebody else, and somebody else wrongs you or whatever, and you look back.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I mean, we're speculating here anyway.
Yeah. I remember one time I used to play basketball at Highland Park and Foster Park all the time, and there was regulars there and stuff like that. And years later, I was with this friend of mine, and we saw this guy, and my friend said, man, we don't like that guy, do we? And I went, nah, we don't like that guy. He said, do you remember why? I went, nope. And so I didn't even remember why that guy at some point had wronged me or whatever. Yeah. But I can look back at myself and look back at my own guilt and the own things in my own life, and I remember them crystal clear.
Yep.
And so when you said, why is that we
is it because we can't forget? Because forgetting and forgiving are definitely tied.
Well, if we take and we write that whatever that wrong was on a piece of paper and pencil, and we write it on a piece of paper, and then we take it someplace. I got to get over that. I got to forgive myself, and so we erase it off that thing. And so you look at the paper and it's gone. And then later on in life, we pick the paper back up, and if we turn that right, you can see the indentations of where I erased it, because we just can't say it's just gone. We still have to kind of pick it up and look at it and go, if you hold that just right, you can see the letters because the pencil, and go, because we try. We really try to go back but
it's true. Yeah, you do know every terrible thing about yourself.
Oh yeah.
And you don't know every terrible thing about someone else. If you did, it'd probably be equally as difficult to forgive them for who they are. But the strange thing about it is, we know for sure that we're all very similar in that way.
Oh, yeah, I think
unless somebody is, falls in the tiny percentage of the population, and they're unfortunate enough to be like, psychopathic or have like derangement or chemical problems, neurological problems. Other than those people, the rest of us are pretty much feeling the same feelings, thinking the same type of thoughts, having a similar experience, and we're all afraid that everybody else is going to find out we're a weirdo.
Oh yeah,
but everybody's the weirdo.
Oh yeah, I can. That's everybody's a weirdo is probably a good way of saying it. It's that we tend to look at someone else or look at somebody else's life and from the outside think they've got it together, but somebody's looking at us, looking at me and thinking I got it together, and inside I'm a whirlwind, and so they're thinking the same thing about us too.
True. Do you think that's gotten worse with social media? Now that people just only publish the best parts of their lives? Do you think, especially for young kids looking at that, and they're like, man, these people are like amazing and happy all the time. And they're looking at it from the perspective of a person who knows all of their terrible, failings.
Yeah. And also we find, this is philosophically, we find the best lighting to take the picture. So no matter in however we present things or we say things or quite literally take the picture, we find the best lighting. Nobody, if you're trying to be in a fitness and trying to say, hey, I'm getting in better shape or whatever, we don't find that lighting that makes our belly look the biggest.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Sure.
and as a matter of fact, you go back through and I you think about how we present things and all. And I'm big about I don't like typos in things, and so I'll go back in a post whatever, I'll fix a typo, and just because it bugs me. But even at that, I think probably mentally that's because I don't want somebody to think I'm dumb or somebody to think that I, and so
fear of inadequacy or something.
So,
yeah, sure.
But it's but in one way, maybe it's making us be better, because maybe somebody might take a photo, or somebody might do a quote that I said, or somebody might, and so I don't know. It's social media is just such a weird thing. It can be the worst, and it can be the best.
That's a good description of it. The most powerful tool ever for good and evil.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's because it has the ability to build and the ability to destroy.
Yeah, it does. That's true. Man, we just went right off on it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming here again. It's good to see you again.
Oh, thanks. I love talking to you. I love following along with the podcast, and I love the way that you are, can bring out conversation that is I can listen to and I can participate in, that gives me a chance to think a little bit and I can be vulnerable, and I can do this without worrying about the best lighting.
Yeah, that's good, honest conversation. That's what we need more of this, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you're here willing to do it. I think it's cool for other people to see it too, especially maybe younger people. There's, I feel like that you could say this for sure. There's a lot less opportunity for face-to-face conversation that has like a sense of openness to it. Not like me and you aren't trying to push our agendas on each other.
Oh,
now.
for sure.
There's absolutely zero of that. We're trying to explore through conversation and openness, which is something that I think we have less of an opportunity to do as often now, especially in person, face-to-face. So it's pretty cool, I think. The feedback I've gotten is there's a lot of people, it's like, man, it's really cool to see this. I know it sounds dumb, but I guess I kind of forgot how to have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And what's interesting is just today at the gym, I had a great conversation with a gentleman who was 81 and probably a generational thing. We were able to just met for the first time in the gym and just a little it was born from courtesy and just a nice conversation. And so I think about that, it being a lost art. And I also think about we probably both have enough experience in life to be able to communicate our experiences. And I think a lot of times that we're dissuading young people from doing that because all we're asking for is their sensational moments. And and in with this guy this morning, after that conversation, I would have clicked like.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I would have.
Sure.
But I think also I find that the more conversation I have, and conversation is not a monologue; it's two-way. And the more that I let out, the more I can take in. And so and it's also. I also want to meter what I say and make what I say have some weight or some value, because talking a lot is not always better.
That's the truth. I think about things like this all the time, all the way back to the ancient Greek idea of logos, that somehow language, the words that we speak, are closely related to like the reasonable order behind all things in the animated spirit of the universe, or God, if you will, all the way up to like, you look everywhere you look, spell casting is done by words, prayer is done in words, like manifesting is done in words, like
edification
yes
is done with words.
Yeah, so there's I think conversation is more important in a lot more deep ways to the functioning of our society, and probably more than that than anybody realizes. I might be like exaggerating this correlation, but if you not just a conversation between two people, which is important, but the conversations that happen on a level of a society or a culture or politically or otherwise, like, is really, really, I think it's fundamental to its existence, at least for sure in like an individualist free society like the United States. I think once the conversations start going down, things start going worse. Now, like you're saying, the noise doesn't go down. Just the conversation goes down. There's still a lot of people talking, a lot of noise, a lot of media, a lot of people commenting on each other's stuff. But if it doesn't have the characteristics of a conversation, which is basically the foundation of the free exchange of ideas. Without conversation, there is no exchange of ideas. If I'm just waiting for my turn to talk and to sell you on something that I believe, and I'm not listening to you, and I'm not trying to see where this conversation can go, we're not exchanging ideas. We're both going to be exactly the same before we started. And I think there's too much of that happening and not enough conversation happening.
Well, talking is not conversation.
Right.
So I mean, that's a pretty easy qualifier for me. That is, and honestly, the other thing, Dustin, is more and more in my life, I'm appreciating conversation with people that have different viewpoints than me. Too many people only have conversation with people that agree with all of their ideologies and all their philosophies and all their theologies. And I'm appreciating now, if someone is a broken record, then that's going to get old quick.
Sure.
But if someone feels, if you're a flat earther, explain it to me. If you're,
Yeah.
I mean, and if at the end we can laugh and still get a cup of coffee and we can still walk away, here's the key is when you have a conversation and you leave going, I'd like to do that again with that person. You're not saying we totally agreed. You're not saying we're totally in sync. You're not saying we resolved anything. You're saying, I'd like to do that again. And I consider that a win.
Yeah. That's it, man. That's it. And I think you kind of alluded to in there the idea of like selection and confirmation biases and all these things. I think more popularly we refer to them as like echo chambers. Is that the way it's described, where people only like talking to people that just reaffirm what they already think over and over and over again? Like, I'm not making fun of people who do that, because I do that like everybody else sometimes. But what you're saying is noticing the extreme value in doing the opposite of that, finding people who don't think like you do and listening to them to see how it is they do think.
And I think part of that is even when you go cross ideology, cross theology, cross culturally, for me, what I try to do quickly is find some commonality. And if I can find some commonality in us, I can then really connect on things I don't agree with, because there is a commonality, and a lot of that. I mean, you can in the small talk portion. I mean, very few conversations. I like deep conversations and all, but I don't want someone to walk right up and say,
what's the meaning of the universe?
Correct. Yeah. but if you talk a little bit about the weather, and it becomes to families, and it becomes to going to the gym, and hey, you go to the gym too, and and what have you been doing? I've been watching NFL, and what's your team, and all of a sudden, then we can broaden that. But we've found that we are alike in enough ways that we're not protagonists. We are we just differ a little bit. And I think that's, for me, that's a key, is finding some connection.
That's a good strategy. That is a good strategy. I think it's assumed for me, but maybe I'm making a mistake there. Maybe that's an error. Find common ground, and then you can bounce your ideas that you don't agree on together.
You give more grace. You'll give more grace, and they'll give more grace to you, because they go, we got a little bit alike. We differ on these things, but we still, and you give grace, and you listen more, and you
keep that mutual respect for somebody.
I think it.
Yeah, we all know that everybody gets really bad ideas. We've all had them. So that means every person that you respect and admire most in the world has also had a stupid idea. So logically, just because somebody has a stupid idea doesn't mean you shouldn't respect them.
Yeah, it's for me. It's also if they've got a stupid idea, I want to know how informed they are on this. And if they've and being informed doesn't mean that you've just they start naming conspiracy theory websites, and that's the whole scope of their research. But if someone is informed and they know about things and they've thought about things, and it doesn't mean you have to be scholarly. It can be that you are well read, or you've experienced things. And I go, I can respect that.
Yeah.
And I still when we leave, I may not agree, but I still go, man, that was really interesting, and maybe hopefully out of that, there's something that I can leave with, and I go, I'm going to think about that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good policy. I have this one little weird strategy I do that it was really impactful for my life with other people, socialization, is that if somebody delivers me an idea that either I disagree with or I don't know, I'm agnostic on, if they can explain it to me with some reason and logic and evidence, and like you said, like tell me why, and it actually makes sense, a decent argument, then I'll engage with that argument. I'll offer criticism to it, and I'll offer my argument if it's different. But if they don't give me any of that, I don't ever criticize their argument, and I don't ever offer mine. I let them keep it. Unless they ask me.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think of that? I'm like, you probably don't want to know what I think.
Yeah. Well, when you said that, it reminded me of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
You know, I'd be like, it makes me get along with people that have bad ideas and they don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like we could still get along and I could still respect you. There's no reason for us to have this conversation about your argument that's based in subjective fantasy.
Well, are you familiar with Dunning-Kruger effect?
Dunning-Kruger?
Dunning-Kruger effect.
No.
It's people that are who think themselves to be an expert at something.
Oh, I've heard
they
this,
are
yeah.
they are objectively wrong about things, and so people then become they spread things and they talk about things and they as if they're experts, and all their facts and all their background, all their research is wrong, and yet they continue to propagate certain ideas and certain things. And so what happens is they end up being able to and they want to spread these things, and they do it with such confidence that they almost become believable.
I see that a lot.
Well,
it worries me.
The internet has done that. The internet, I mean, people, if you, have you seen where someone will repost something from a satirical site like The Onion?
Yes. Yes, the tens of thousands of millions of people that think satire is real, and then they agree with it.
Yeah, so but
that scares the shit out of me.
Even beyond agreeing with it, me too. Even beyond agreeing with it, they repost it. So they are growing it. They're growing this idea, and and The Onion is, to me, it's hilarious, and there's such funny things.
Yeah, it's like Jonathan Swift reborn, man. I know, it's beautiful. But could you imagine if in Ireland, when Jonathan Swift wrote that thing to solve the population problem that everybody should just start eating babies, he was clearly being whatever, but he wrote it officially. That's the satire. It's why it's funny. It was a posting. But could you imagine if people were so easy to subject, suggestible, if they were so suggestible that they actually did go around and start eating babies?
Well,
that's sort of what we're doing now.
Well, on social media, locally, we have several that call themselves satirical Facebook sites, and people then begin to repost and the thing about these local ones, they're not funny, and they're not. It's just a weird. It garners them an audience, but there are several satirical sites here, and what happens is people then read that. It becomes true in their mind, and they don't do anything except then they repost it, and then someone else does, and then somebody else will say this is a scam or this is a satire underneath there, and people don't retract it or delete it or anything, and it just. But so I just.
Well, are those things? Are they being like responsibly satiristic,
no.
Or they're trying to make it look as though it may be real? Like they're posting it like a news post or something.
Yeah. Well, and some of them even have the word news into their name, and but then if they get called out on something, then they say, "Oh, this is satire." It's not clever, and it's not. So for me, what happens is people blindly click share.
Because it's so like sensational
Yeah,
that they need to tell other people about it.
Well, people should know about this.
Yeah, it doesn't, and people don't stop to think maybe it's so sensational because it's not true.
Also, maybe it's not real. And
Yeah.
and the other thing is, should I share this?
Right. Yeah, that's the first thing we learned like when I was a kid in like I think high school, junior high English class was the whole idea that you should never repeat something on paper or orally that you can't verify to be true.
Or even
It's a risk to your credibility.
if there's a and it doesn't happen as often as it used to more, but you still see it. If there is a news photo of something locally of a bad car crash and there is a sheet over something in the road, that's poor taste. That's poor taste to take that photo. It's poor taste for even the legitimate news outlets to share that, because that's somebody's person underneath that sheet. And then for people to just automatically and then in the comment sections are the wild, wild west, and they start. I've seen in comment sections of different things, they'll start naming people that, someplace got robbed and it was, well, they'll start naming who they think it might be. And I'm like going, dude, I'm irresponsible and all that. And, and I just don't, and people will start sharing that. And I go, oh, hold up, because you can't put any of that back in the bottle.
Right. Yeah. I know what you're saying. I have trouble drawing lines on what's acceptable or not in free speech, which covers photography. Like that's it's hard to draw hard lines. I don't know where to put them. But
well, for me, it's free speech and taste and empathy are, you can still have free speech, but are we? What is the purpose of this? What is our intention of this?
Yeah.
And so then I look back and go, could we have done that in a way that still has the free speech, it still has the information, but has been more empathetic to those involved?
Yeah. Yeah, well, right. Society would have to decide, because you're talking about like discrepancy, like what's acceptable to everybody.
Have you ever seen any Mexican news from Mexico?
I can't remember explicitly. Dude, I've been to Mexico a lot.
They show the cartel killings and dismemberments, and I mean it is graphic on there.
Yeah.
And so we aren't. I mean, obviously we're in a different. It's different than us. So, but I'm always erring towards. What is the intention? What is the intention of you saying this? What is the intention you posting that? What is your intention?
The risk is you're losing your compassion and empathy and de-dignifying these people in order just to get like some extra attention.
Well,
that's a risk.
If we're trying to get hot takes.
Yeah, I see that. But that's not quite as dangerous as the other thing you mentioned, which is super dangerous, is that people can make accusations now online with no consequence. You could just accuse people of shit right now online, and there's no consequence for you doing that. There is a result. That person will suffer damage. And accusations spread like crazy online. And they don't have to have any evidence. The whole thing's backwards to me.
Somebody could put on there and say, Dustin's a deadbeat dad, and he doesn't do this, and he hasn't done this, and he hasn't paid his taxes, and and his businesses are, whatever, and they're financed by the cartel. I mean, they could do it. So they could say all that stuff. There's no filters for any of that stuff. And
there's no consequence. Nothing bad happens to you for making false accusations. There should be. In real life, there would be.
Yeah, but true. But it's to be able to repair things that either aren't true or don't even need to be said or whatever. I mean, I had a local Facebook group that posted something, and it was very. It was about addicts and about people, and there was even something to be said about Narcan. We ought to just let them die or whatever like that. And I commented and I just said, man, those are, people's family and somebody's brother and somebody's mother and somebody's friend and somebody's coworker and I go, I think we ought to, I think you got to be a little bit cautious. I commented that. I got a message, a Facebook message from them and said, hey, we know a lot of stuff about you. If you don't want us to air you out,
seriously?
Quit comment. Oh yeah.
Wait, because you confronted their nastiness and self-sabotage. And you did it politely and respectfully and just told them maybe it's not a good idea.
I thought a lot about it before I commented.
Right. They thought it necessary to
they
threaten you?
Messaged me and said, hey, if you don't want us to air you, and ha, 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 we know a lot of stuff about you. And if you don't want us to air you out, and you know what?
What?
I didn't want them to air me out.
Yeah, that's a power they shouldn't have.
Uh-huh. But my initial response was, freaking go for it, man. Let's do this. You know?
Throw it out there.
But then I went, I don't know if I could take much more of this, man. And so honestly, I just didn't respond, quit commenting, and quit following the group.
But see, that's a problem.
I know
that is a problem, and it's not your fault. It's a problem. It's a problem because the power is real, and there is no defense against it. They could spread a whole lie about you that isn't true, but it will become true.
Absolutely,
in the sense that you will suffer in income and job
and my family and all. And so for me, even that, and I feel like I'm a strong individual. I feel like I'm an articulate, and but I go, no, the put it this way, the risk reward of that situation was weighed out.
Yeah, well,
and the reward at that time in my life was not worth the risk.
That's right. But the problem with that is
I know.
That is
I'm not proud of this.
No, I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm saying that you're not the problem. The problem is that the risk reward isn't worth fighting. That's the problem, because that's how tyranny is born.
Absolutely.
One step at a time, one small loss at a time.
Absolutely.
Against this shit.
Absolutely. But for me,
it's not just you, it's everybody.
Well, yeah, and so then then they're allowed to say whatever they want to say, and they will stifle everything else. But
you just described Twitter, I think.
This was and this was a local level. So national, it can get bigger on a national level.
That's right.
Or whatever.
It scares me when I see hugely influential, powerful people that have a huge microphone and a big platform to tell the truth and tell their side of the story, and they still can't defend themselves against false accusations. How is a regular person supposed to?
Can't put it back in the bottle.
Yeah.
You cannot put it back in the bottle. And
that's craziness.
And it is crazy. But
there are bad consequences from this situation we're in.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Oh, yeah.
That makes me nervous. Let's talk about something more positive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. There's one thing that you do that's positive online that I see. You write these like... you put a lot of thought and effort into these. They're like, what are they, like aphorisms, like proverbs? They're basically like little statements of wisdom to either get people thinking or conversation started or to communicate some like deeper understanding. I don't know. Do you call them anything, or you just?
No, not really. What I do is I just think about a word, and when I think about a word, I think, how would I, if I had to communicate this word in a way that it might be meaningful to somebody else, and I kind of think that through and kind of think about how I can condense this into a sentence or whatever, and then it might make some sense to somebody, and even if they don't agree, they think about that thought or that word or that phrase, and then they come up with their own idea of it. And so I just think that
I like that. I like that. It's an inspiration.
Yeah, thanks.
One way or another.
I started doing some videos too, where I kind of tell experiential stories of things that happened in my life, and hopefully tie those into, and they're just maybe 90 seconds or 2-minute videos I know everybody's attention span. I know my attention span. But to be able to kind of capture if something happened or whatever, and I can kind of say, because I love word pictures, and I can kind of tell a word picture of something that happened. I could tell a word picture of something, and it tends to. I feel like if I can, it feels like a contribution to society.
I think it is, because at the very least, they're conversation starters. Either whether it's happening to people just with themselves, like they think about it, they're having a conversation with themselves, or they can talk to other people about it, or they can comment and talk to other people and you about it, right? I think we talked about how important conversation is earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And those things that you say, you could say a lot about them, and we could do that today. That'll be fun. But one thing I like about them, they all seem to share a quality of being pretty open to conversation. None of them are really rigid, like, believe this, asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Believe this or you're an idiot. They're sort of open for discussion.
One of the things that I hope that is even if it's implied, is it's okay for a man to be vulnerable. That's one of the main things that I want to as a message, even if I don't say it or whatever, because it's okay for a man to be vulnerable. It's okay to have a deep thought. It's okay to express a fear. It's okay to say, I like this. I like this. And it is in the world of everything being blamed on toxic masculinity. I go, nothing has made me feel more masculine than being vulnerable.
I agree with that. I want to get more of your thoughts on that, because my understanding is you can be vulnerable in two ways as a man. I have trouble speaking for women. I don't fully understand what it would be like to be a woman, so I'm excluding them from my opinion. As you progress through your masculinity and you gain strength and confidence, so you pass through machoism, which usually happens when you're a teenager, and then you learn that that's stupid. And you get strong enough to where not only can, like, you fight these battles and you have courage to slay your dragons, literally or figuratively. You could go to war and combat and that kind of courage and strength as a man. But beyond that, something that requires even more masculinity, more courage, or more strength, and more self-reliance would be, to me, vulnerability is like the strongest a man could be, is when he's strong enough to be vulnerable, because it's terrifying.
Well, when you said that, I thought most of my scars came from machoism.
Yeah, that's where you learn this is a bad idea.
So most of it, I can show you all these different scars and things like that and go, yeah, because I thought I needed to portray or I needed to prove. Now, when I get older, and let me tell you, wisdom doesn't inherently come with age. And so, but as I get older and I become more vulnerable, then if someone says, "Hey, we ought to jump off with this gas tower with these homemade bungee ropes," I'm younger. I'm thinking, "Oh man, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it because everybody's going to think if I don't do it, I'm whatever."
Right.
And now I go, you know what? You guys go ahead. I'll film you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm vulnerable enough to say, you know what? I'm okay with not doing this. And so, and then emotionally, it's even harder. So emotionally, to be vulnerable and to be, if you ask most men, and this would be an interesting experiment, and you ask teens, and then 20s, and then 30s, and then 40s, and you say, what scares you? What are you afraid of? most men at all ages are going to say nothing, or they just won't. They
Right.
they,
Which is actually a declaration of their fear of being vulnerable.
yeah. You're
they're
like,
not going to tell you.
You're like, I don't have anything to go. Oh, yep, you did, Jim.
There it is.
Let me just mark you down for this.
Yeah.
But it is
Right.
true. And people have my grandson the other day, he said, what are you afraid of, Poppy? And I had to think about it. And he's 10. And at first I didn't want to get super deep, and I thought, and because I'm not afraid of snakes, I'm not afraid of drowning, I'm not afraid of, confined spaces, I'm not afraid of these things. And I said, Jack, I'm sort of afraid of people not liking me. Now, that's pretty deep for a 10-year-old, but also,
I think 10-year-olds would get that.
But also, if he feels that way,
yeah,
and then he can process that. Because someone that I
he probably thinks you're pretty brave and strong, and he's going to see that like, oh man, he's afraid of that too. Maybe I'm not.
And then if it's okay for him to feel that way, then I don't want him to be that way. Yeah. But you can't change things you don't know about. Mm-hmm. You just can't. And so for me that's vulnerable. Yeah. And that's way more vulnerable than physically, becoming vulnerable. And so I just think that's I think that's important and important for the masculinity of a man. And so for me, dude, I love to bake. I bake, I cook, I bake bread, and I'm good with myself.
That's
for that.
Excellent.
I love it.
I like cooking too.
And so
it's chemistry, man.
I know people now. Even guys my age are. Oh man, if I had $20,000 or $30,000, I'd buy a '65 Mustang, or I'd buy a whatever '67 Ford pickup truck, or I'd buy this, or I'd buy this boat. And I go, I'd buy a Viking oven. And they're like, what? And I go, oh, dude, a Viking, them things. Have you seen those things, man? They're about 18 grand and all. So, but I'm okay with that because I've got to the point of being vulnerable that I go, this is who I am.
Right. That takes courage.
And so
it takes courage.
But it's also incredibly freeing. It's incredibly freeing to say, I like this, or I write poetry once in a while, or I feed the bird. I have 6 bird feeders, and I like to sit out back and feed the birds. And because before you worry about how they're going to think about me, are they going to think I'm not cool, or are they going to think I'm not a man, are they going to think about it? And I go, yeah, and that even goes farther in how I dress. I'm okay with my style. I'm not I don't buy anything because it's cool or because it's in. I don't buy anything or I wear anything because, I think people are going to think, oh, this guy's got it together. Or, he's obviously got money. He's obviously whatever. And I go, this is what I like. I like these colors. Yeah. I like these fabrics. I like these, and it's okay. And so when you get to where you're vulnerable, and what happens is it's crazily freeing. It is crazily freeing.
Yeah, that's sort of like the courage to face yourself. And that is so empowering, and I agree with you 100%. What I worry about is it gets confused with a different kind of vulnerability. And men are exceptionally dangerous when they're vulnerable this other way, like where they're not going through this progress that I believe exists, that I described, and they kind of go the other way where they give up and they become apathetic and they become suggestible and they don't know who they are and they don't face things courageously and they become slaves to their emotions and they're not even trying to regulate moderation or control themselves or whatever. They can get to this point to where then they also become vulnerable. But it's the wrong kind of vulnerable. It's like, I've seen it and it's hard to describe, but it's dangerous. Like they get suggestible. And I don't know if I'm qualified to define that psychologically or sociologically, but do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen people become vulnerable in that way?
Well, it's sort of, but they're becoming vulnerable
because they have no choice, like because they become weak.
Yeah. So it's beat down is not vulnerable.
Right.
So if you're it's vulnerable is the strength of confessing your weaknesses. It's not the weakness of being it's not the weakness of having no options except to tell that. Because
right, like the surrendering to the
So if I don't have to tell you, something vulnerable, then it's more strength to tell you.
Right, I agree. That's the one you want.
Yeah, I mean,
I
if the cops stop you and say, hey, we got you on tape, we've got you on film, we got the video, we got the Ring camera, everything else, and we know that you did that, so might as well fess up. And they go, yeah, I did that.
That's not really taking responsibility.
and it's not that honesty or anything like that.
Right. That's a good example.
They got you, and
you're not being George Washington right now.
No, but if something happens and you go, you know what, that was me.
Yeah,
that was me. I did that. It was dumb, and I know it was dumb, and so. But I just think that for men to and for me to be vulnerable, and what happens is I have slowly, and I'm working, not worked. I'm working through it. Is then I'm able to do something about it. I'm able to do something about my feelings because I've gone, this is how I feel. And I don't want to, if I'm vulnerable, I can say, I don't want to feel this way. Or I can say, I do want to feel this way. I want to feel this way because it keeps my ego in check.
I felt like we had a good discovery there. I had this, this idea of what goes wrong, that the wrong kind of vulnerability versus the right kind of vulnerability for men. And I think our two perspectives together really made it pretty clear for me.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that's strictly what the intention of a vulnerability is?
The intention of our vulnerability? You mean like the purpose of it, like why we have it?
Yeah.
And why we seek to protect it? That's a pretty deep.
It is, because let me tell you this. If it can, someone, a man, could use that because girls like vulnerable guys.
Do they?
Well, I tend to think that yes, I will. I think they do, because that doesn't mean you're not masculine. It doesn't mean you're not a man's man. But it's a sensitive type, and so if
it's hard to tell that too.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe I don't know. Listen,
everything's so hard to tell too.
Yeah, I'm single, so forget anything I just said.
Well, I think these things too, and then I think about them, and I've actually studied that one a bit, and I don't mean to derail your point there, but like it is worth noting that of course women like vulnerable, sensitive men, because women also like to have a lot of friends.
Oh yeah,
The question is, are they sexually attracted to
Good
it?
point. So yeah. I guess let me requalify that statement. If a guy thinks he's doing this to get women, so maybe somebody on TikTok or on Facebook or on Instagram, and they do they go, I'm at a flower shop, and I'm kind of finding out that I like flowers and I like to plant. Now, if you do, good for you, because I have plants in my house and I have good for you. But if you're doing that with the intention of getting sympathy or getting attention, or if your intention is that so that others think differently about you, then it's the opposite effect. But if you're doing
that's a disingenuous motivation.
Sure.
I think people pick up on that, and that's like snake in the grass.
Well,
and they're
it's
no.
by the total opposite. Guys that present as being ultra macho is also just as easily detectable.
Oh yeah,
And so
that's actually super easy.
But both ways are
Yeah.
because people are we're not dumb, and we get that.
Yeah.
And so I just think the intention. So if your intention of being vulnerable is so mine, and I've thought about this because I think about my intention for everything. Why am I going to post this? What is my intention to say this? What is my intention to go here? What is my intention? Because that is a better guide for me than just emotional feelings. But if I'm doing that, if I'm thinking it through and I'm thinking, for me, my being vulnerable is one, it helps me to heal. It's also two, the most authentic me there is, and three, maybe it will help somebody else. So that's my intention for doing that. Now, if I was doing that because I thought, you know what, I bet I could really build a following if I come across as being, so if I have a chainsaw, but I'm actually carving daisies with a chainsaw, maybe I'll get an audience that'll be, and I go, well, that's not.
I get that all the time, actually. People trying to help me promote my podcast, which is the only public thing that I do now. They give all these ideas how I could get more people to listen to it if I do these things or those things, basically to be disingenuous. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? The strategy you're talking about is basically what our grandma told us. You know what I mean? You got to be yourself. That means to not be lying about your motive and what you're going after. Be your genuine, authentic self is what you're saying. And that's actually takes some work to find out.
The best me is better for everybody. It may not seem like it at first. Well, it may be a hard transition, but me being the best me is going to be the best me for everybody else too.
Right. And it will attract people into your space that are more compatible with who you really are. That kind of lines up reality with you. And that's definitely going to be a sustained strategy. It's never going to go wrong.
Well, it goes back to that Dunning-Kruger effect. If I love someone that says, I don't know, or I've never heard that, or they say, I that never occurred to me. Mm-hmm. And because all of a sudden I go, this person really, truly is vulnerable. They're open, and they probably want to know more.
That's a good point. The best way to be vulnerable is to realize you're an idiot. Like all of us. I mean this specifically, if you can shut your ego down for a second, which likes to make you feel like you know everything and your information's complete and all of your ideas are good. None of that's true. Never has been true for anyone alive, not even Einstein. So the truth is more like there's a lot of shit you don't know. And a lot of your ideas are bad because of it. And so when a person can accept that for themselves, then they get a really good chance to see where exactly am I ignorant. Because there's a difference between just knowing you don't know things and knowing what it is that you don't know.
Yeah. And the other thing is a word you used, ignorance is not a fault or a bad thing. It means I don't know.
That's it.
So when someone
that's right, it became kind of an insult.
You're ignorant and you're ignorant and I go, that just means that they don't know. And so I don't think you're roasting them like you think you're roasting them.
Yeah.
Because
not unless it's something they should
know.
Well,
because if you said how much do you know about trigonometry? And I said, I'm totally ignorant on that.
Yeah, would be accurate. Probably.
Yeah, and for me, I go, I'm not offended at all by that. But pretending to know something, or even having a limited knowledge and thinking you're an expert is way worse. Mm-hmm. It is if you had a heart attack, and someone said, "Oh, I can do open heart surgery. I've been on WebMD and I've done, and I'm
right.
I'm pretty sure I saw this on YouTube and you
I
go,
understand the basics.
yeah.
Give me the knife.
and you go, oh no. But if you did, and I went, Dustin, I can't help you, man. I'm totally ignorant. Let me find an expert.
That's
like,
the people you trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's, and so just in life,
there are a lot of people in our culture right now talking loud that it's very apparent they don't know shit, but they are not willing or able to notice or believe that they really are lacking in information.
There's a
that's terrifying.
It is. There's a quote that says you can gauge someone's ignorance by the number of phenomena they can explain with the same answer.
So if they're able to do that, they're more ignorant. Yeah.
So if they can, the more phenomena they can explain with the same answer.
Yes, I totally get that.
So
I'm going to steal that.
So I'll go back a few presidents ago. If gas went up, thanks Obama.
Yeah.
If your school canceled the play,
right.
thanks Obama.
I remember that.
And so if someone can explain. So even if they explain everything with global warming, it's global warming, and they go, and they go, well, there's the pineapple crop's dying in Hawaii. That's global warming, and
that makes me think of this great example that happened to me recently. I have a person that I know I have much respect for. They're extremely religious, which I have a deep admiration and respect for Christianity. But they sort of got in this habit of saying, that's Jesus for everything. And I was like, okay, that's not helping anymore. Like that may be true or not. Let's say it is true. That's still like so far down to the line of things that I can use. Like of course everything is because God's plan.
Yeah, but
I understand that, but I still have to be able to do something.
If you described everything, if you could always describe any phenomena by saying that's how the atoms aligned,
right? Yeah, same thing.
And they go, what am I supposed to do with that?
Right.
And the other thing is
it's not an explanation for everything.
No, but if they can describe if everything that goes wrong in the world is the government's fault. If everything goes wrong in the world is the Republicans' fault. Yeah. Everything is the Democrats' fault. If they can describe most of the phenomena you talk about, and they can use just a very small handful of answers, and it just, to me, and once again, I'm saying ignorance by not as a slam, but that means they really don't know the answers.
Right. Yeah, it's a trap too, like that people can get in if you get one answer. And you just decide this is satisfactory, and I'll use this to answer this question from now on about the universe or life or my life or whatever. Then you stop looking.
If every time you ask me something, I went, no, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, boy, can you believe how high gas prices? It is what it is. And you go, man, can you believe the southern poles are melting? You go, it is what it is. Yeah. And can you believe that Mars has a new? It is what it is. And there's people that because what happens is that's
a good example of the opposite of admitting your ignorance. Because if you could say, man, shit, I don't know. Maybe I should know.
Right?
Should I know? But there's a lot of things you don't have to know.
Yeah, but I was going to say, you also could say, I've got a lot that concerns me right now.
Yeah.
I can't take on one more thing. It's okay to say that too.
Yeah. Yeah. If it doesn't obviously have some utility for your life or your future vision or whatever.
Or you simply don't have the bandwidth for it. There's been times in my life. Okay. There have been really some times in my life that I have not been good with money. A lot of times. And it's because there are times in my life where emotionally and mentally, I don't have the bandwidth. Doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. It means that right now I understand I don't have the bandwidth. So I'm just going to, and later on I go, I agree. That was dumb, or that wasn't, or I could have done better. But I go, so there's just times in life we just do not have the bandwidth.
Sure.
And that's understanding your emotional health. And when you understand that, you go, there are things that we still have to face. Let me tell you, if you continue to tell your wife that ain't going to last long. Dustin, why don't you do this? I don't have emotional bandwidth. So you can't keep saying that might work once or twice.
I don't have the bandwidth for anything I don't like to hear.
yeah. I'm gonna sit back in the corner and play my guitar for a month. But there are times, and there are things that generally in life it's okay to pump the brakes on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do that like on a very functional level because I get a lot of irons and fires with businesses and different things. I'm still also trying to juggle my personal development, personal growth. I'm always doing stuff with that too, and I don't have bandwidth for everything I want to do. So I try to stack it up. And if something comes around where I'm like, man, I just can't even think about this right now. But I realize it could be useful if I did.
Yeah.
I'll put it down. Okay, in 6 weeks, I'm changing my calendar, my schedule, and my vision. Okay, in 6 weeks, this is now on the list for something to consider for the utility or priority.
And there's sometimes in life we have to create the bandwidth. If you have a bill that's due and you keep throwing the bills coming in and they keep throwing it away, eventually you gotta create the bandwidth. But part of that maturity is figuring out there's a great philosopher whose name was Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
And he said, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
That's true.
Know when to walk away, know when to run. And so there are times when you can hold them. You got to do something with it. There's times you go, I got to fold.
But see, this is coming from you, which is a guy. I try to remember my audience sometimes. You have a tremendous amount of fighting spirit and sense of adventure about you. Not everybody has that. Did you know, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there for fun. This isn't fun, though. The most recent study has found a pretty significant level of like subclinical apathy in over 35% of people now. Apathy is like where you don't, you know what that means?
Yes.
You don't care. You give up on trying.
You literally, it doesn't matter to you at all.
Yeah. So obviously they're not clinical apathetic. Like they don't need treated by a professional, but like 35% of people just giving up on shit.
So the thing about that is I've been at some points of my life where what happens is, and I think it's directly related to depression. And a lot of people won't admit they're depressed or won't. But what happens is with apathy is then you are almost unable to have joy.
Oh, for sure.
So even on things that you love,
apathy is like the worst thing that could happen to a human, in my opinion. Like it is the step right before like atrophy and decay and death.
Sure,
like,
but then
you're not going to make it.
No, because then you literally because you begin to have apathy about certain things. That is a virus in your life that spreads and grows, and eventually you can't hardly find joy in anything. And
what I'm getting at is like 3.5 out of 10 people that might listen to this are not going to be like you with this immense fighting spirit inside of you and this sense of adventure that you're like finding a way to calm that down and become more relaxed and let things go. But the 3.5 out of 10 people that might listen to this they're people that are trying to find some way to get a fighting spirit, to get inspired, to give a shit, to do something. What would you say to them, do you think?
There's quieting your spirit. Quieting your spirit allows you to think with clarity, allows you to take a 100-foot view of your own self. Because we spend most of our life at the 1-foot view of our own self. But when you quiet your spirit, and that could be physical silence, it could be meditation, it could be simply exhaling in life a little bit and quieting your spirit. And that's not easy because Rage Against the Machine, there's a song that says, the sound of silence makes me sick. That's a reality for a lot of people. But if you quiet your spirit and you're able to step back from your own self and kind of all of a sudden absurdity stands out. All of a sudden maybe narcissism stands out. Maybe good qualities stand out. Maybe everything kind of stands out, and you look back and you go, this is who I am. And I can choose, and maybe it's exactly who I want to be. And I just need to keep doing this. Maybe it's not. And so I think that for somebody I think that the ability to kind of quiet their spirit and and I understand if you have people who are young listeners and they got young families and they got a crazy job and they're constantly, it becomes harder to do that. But I think finding a way to just quiet your spirit and then step away from yourself and go, this is what I truly think. This is what I truly believe. This is not what I tell my buddies. This is not what I post on Instagram. This is what I truly think about these things.
Yeah.
And then you go, do I like that do I like this me? And that's, I don't know that there's not a right or wrong, because even if you're not a good person, but you like it, then that's not, it just is what it is. But if you step back and go, is this the best me? And then if not, how do I get there? How do I get to be my best?
Now you got something to do. That's meaningful. That's a good perspective. I like that. I think that's useful too. I've observed some things that seem to help people that are apathetic, that are right along lines with what you just said. Like, it's usually stop thinking about yourself and, decide to go engage in something that helps other people for a while. And I think basically it helps them disengage from their internal narrative and connect with other people. You really can get good at taking care of yourself if first you practice taking care of other people.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
It's easier to take care of other people for some reason than it is yourself sometimes.
It's because you can walk away.
You think?
Yeah, if you're taking care of other people and doing other people, you can walk away. But guess what? When you walk away, you're still with you, and so you can walk away and you can feel good or bad or indifferent, or you can think I did well. You can pat yourself on the back. You can do whatever you want. But when you walk away, then that's done. But with you still got to brush your teeth and look at the person in the mirror, and that person doesn't go away.
Yeah. Plus helping other people, I think, just intrinsically will help you feel better about who you are. Well, it's okay that there's a selfish reason for helping other people. I
absolutely. Think. There's a dopamine that's released when you do that in you. If I help you, so if I see you and you walk out back of your house and you're carrying groceries and you drop the groceries and I bend down to pick them up and I help you, you feel better that I've helped you. I feel better that I've done something good. And then over here at Oscar's Pizza, Matt's looking out the window and he goes, well, that was nice. That guy just helped Dustin. And then he feels better about it. And then somebody across the street happen to have a video and they video it and they feel better. They put it on Facebook and people watch that and go, I feel better watching that people I don't even know, he's helping him. We see it all the time.
It's amazing.
But there's a dopamine. And so all of a sudden, so many people feel better about something and it's okay. That's not selfish. It's okay.
Well, yeah, some things it's okay to be selfish about. I mean, if you weren't considering yourself, no one else would necessarily. You're the one that's responsible for your survival. That's right.
For sure. But that's just a way that, so helping other people, and it's okay to feel, because it makes everybody feel better. It just does.
That's true. That's interesting. The other thing that seems to help people, maybe it's not different, it's along the same lines, is to just take on a really important responsibility of some kind. Which is pretty much along the lines of helping someone else. But something that is like a commitment that you could follow through with seems to help people that are apathetic.
Yeah, there's it gives them some focus. And so if you got something that it's a goal or a commitment or something like that, you can focus and you can say, I mean, I've had to, in my own life, I don't know if you ever have had to literally tell myself, I got to shake this off. I got to shake this apathy off. I got to shake this.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time.
I got to shake off this self-pity. I've got to shake off this sadness.
Yeah.
I got to shake it. Listen. And
that stuff's like poop in my mouth, man. Like if I feel that way, I'm like, I don't like this. We're gonna do something. I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna jump in a bath of ice water. I'm gonna do something.
Well, I mean, there's times in my life, and even now, if my grandchildren are coming over and I'm feeling however I'm feeling, I got to get my shit together because listen, I want this is about them, not about me.
Yeah.
And so you can shake it off. And so there's that commitment to making a change. You can fight through it. Not always. People will always, with anxiety, with shame, with all these different feelings, people who haven't experienced them will go, just freaking quit being sad. Quit being,
people's advice to other people.
Yeah, just snap out of it.
Right.
And let me tell you.
Boy, that's easy, right?
Well, if we all could just snap out of our own mental health issues, don't you think we'd leave that switch? I'd tape the switch on. But,
right. But it's also not that terrible of advice, too, because sometimes we all get seduced into our own misery. Isn't it strange, like when feeling sorry for yourself can be really seductive to make you want to keep feeling sorry for yourself? Or being angry can be so seductive and making you find other ways to stay angry.
Oh, for sure.
Like sometimes it is a little helpful when somebody's like, hey, just knock that shit off.
Oh, absolutely. But it has to be the right person.
Right. That's a good point.
Because let me tell you, if you don't already have a relationship with him, it's not going to be received well.
Nope.
I mean, if
I'm angry,
if I see somebody at the who's walking out at the mall and they got a mean mug on their face and they're mad, and I said, hey, sir, knock that shit off.
Yeah, that's not going to go well.
That's not going to go well. That's not going to go well. But if I see somebody that I know and that I've have a relationship with, and I go and I start talking and they start being angry about it, I go, hey, listen, man, it's okay it's okay that you can just change it up. And right now, listen, let's, man, I know you, and I know you're a strong person, and I know this is not you. And so, man, shake that off. It's different, but
my trick is meditation. Usually meditation isn't all that fun. So usually I'll do other stuff because it's more fun. If I'm feeling like lethargic, I'll go for a jog. If I'm feeling like uninspired, I literally get in a cold tub, ice water, and just get loaded with adrenaline and then dopamine, and I'll maybe feel inspired later. Or those are the things I usually do. But when I get emotions or stuff happening that I can't seem to stop making thoughts about, which is a good indication to me that I've lost authority. I'll meditate, which I'll do an insight meditation, which is where I just get into a state to where I can objectively observe those states and those feelings and those physiological and emotional things. And what's amazing is it only takes a few minutes for those things to disappear when they're brought into your awareness in that kind of state. It's an incredibly powerful skill that I've learned. And I often am hesitant to suggest it to people because it never sounds compelling to people that could be the single most important skill they ever gain in their life.
Well, I think part of that, Dustin, is even myself. I'm going to venture to say I meditate, and I don't even know I'm meditating, because in my mind, I've got a preconceived idea of meditation. And so we think it has to be done a certain way, and a certain, the whole idea of you got to be eyes closed and friggin' humming something or whatever. And because that's kind of perpetuated that way. And so to be able to understand this is what you're trying to achieve, and it may look a lot different on how you get there. on meditation. Because if we think I got to lock myself in a closet, it's got to be quiet, I've got to be, and go, it very well could look like that. But there are other ways that meditation can look. And like you said, it could be jogging so I think an education or letting people figure out, say, what am I trying to achieve? And then how I get there varies drastically.
Yeah, it is best when people learn for themselves their own best way. It's best because they also remember it better.
Yeah, and it's also not forced.
Yeah.
If someone says the only way to meditate is, you got to have a gong, you got to have, and all of a sudden,
which that's always kind of been ironic to me, because a good insight meditating, like the less things to think about, obviously, are better.
Yeah,
and those things are all things to think about.
Clearing your mind is hard.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people misinterpret the point of meditating. It isn't to actually sit in a state of like transmuted thought, like no thought. That is the point for some people, but that's kind of like enlightenment. Like you're probably not going to do that. What you're practicing is the movement. Like, so you clear your mind for a second, and then a thought or a feeling will arise that just happens. And then you see it, but instead of chasing it down, you see it and observe it, feel it, and then, let it go and gently move your awareness, your attention out of it and let it go. And it's just that movement, like it's like a muscle, that the practice that you're really going for. So you're never going to accomplish meditation if you're trying to accomplish never not thinking the whole time. What you are going to do is strengthen your muscle of the ability to select or let go of what's happening inside of you, which I find really useful when I'm awake later on. Like I can stop and let that go. Nope.
What's your feelings on repetitious mantras?
Well, it's a programming, and that can be useful. But I think ultimately what it comes down to for people who do it is it ends up being a meditation. It ends up being a state that they become familiar with that they can just go back to, which I think fundamentally that's what it is. I guess it's probably important what the mantra is, what you're saying, and what it means to you. Well, I don't know. Yeah. What do you think?
So Christians practice, if you ask Christians about meditation, they're generally going to think of maybe an Eastern religion or something like that. But let me tell you, Christianity, evangelical Christianity, Western evangelical Christianity, practices a thing called breath prayers.
I was going to say a prayer looks a lot like meditating to me.
But breath prayers are something that you sort of repeat, just repeat over and over again, and it causes you to focus and causes you to, and so I think that as you said, depending on what you are, the mantra, what you are repeating or whatever, but if that allows you to at least slow down and be in that place for a moment, then I think you're okay. And because you're going, because I think then once you experience that, you begin to broaden that a little bit into different ways, and you don't have to do that. But I think it's it's probably just like running. You go out and walk a block before you run a mile, and so there has to be a way that eventually to feel that way.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think prayer and meditation are in the same realm, and I also think concentration is in that realm, and I think self-hypnosis is in that realm. They're all useful in very similar ways, and they might be useful in other ways. I'm not ruling that out. I'm just pointing out the ways that they're similar. But you mentioned something about activity that I also think there are some things that require so much of your present attention that you have to let go of all other thoughts and feelings and sensations. Certain activities, like some people find this when they're surfing, You know, you're have to pay attention to the waves, the atmosphere, the wind, other people. You're bored. You're bound. Like so much goes in. It requires all of your attention, and it's still not enough attention. So you can't possibly be worried about the bad shit that happened yesterday, or the terrible thing that might happen tomorrow. So you're essentially meditating the whole time you're surfing. Well, same could be true with fishing or running, or
for sure. Well, that brings up a point. One of the things that I am really being cognizant of my life, and I'm working on, is I want to increase the number of moments in a day that my mind and my feet are in the same place.
That's actually a meditation too, is to think about your toes and move them.
Well, I didn't know that, but I know that if and for being present,
I like that.
For being present, if I can increase the number of times a day that my mind and my feet are in the same place, then I'll give you a quick little story about that.
Is that what they mean? That's the kind of where the expression, like, give what's in front of you your attention.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'll give an example. I was in the mid 2000s. I was in Africa. I was in Kenya, and I was witnessing at the Masai Mara the Great Migration, the Lion King Great Migration.
No way. Saw
thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of animals. They cross from Tanzania, they cross the Mara River, and they come into Kenya. They come looking for water, exactly like the Lion King. And there are, you can sit in one spot and you can watch wildebeest for hours, farther than you can see the end of them. That's how big the herds are. Herds of zebras, everything. So I'm witnessing this. And at one point, I realized that I was jacking with my camera so much, trying to get the best pictures and the best video, and I realized that I was jacking with my camera so much and to get the best pictures, I was not in that moment. That's one of the natural wonders of the world. And I'm there and I'm watching it, but I can't even be there because
you're not actually there. You're in this camera
because I want to be able to show you later.
Right. Yeah.
So I am
not even show me a copy.
Yeah. So I'm investing in the later instead of being present in the now. And I remember that moment vividly of going, I got to put this camera down. And I thought, if I ever do this again, I'm not going to bring a camera or a phone. Because the temptation to not be in the moment. Now, that was a kind of an aha moment for me. But I just think that being present where your feet are and your mind being where your feet are, and one of the ways that I started doing this a few years ago was when I talk to somebody, I turn and square my shoulders with them.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to you, even now, if I'm sitting like this, or if I see you at the store and I say, "Hey, Dustin," and if I'm turned, that body language is I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Let me get this done.
Or if you pull the phone out of your pocket and start looking at it.
Sure. But if I take, when you say, "Hey, Kevin," and I turn, and if I square my shoulders with you, I'm way more likely to be in that moment, thus in that conversation, and be able to listen and to be able to be there. And you, consciously or subconsciously, notice that. And so, so for me, just now thinking about trying to say, how much more often and so I live in a great place that has woods all around it. There's trails, there's woods, and I like to go for walks in the woods. Now, when I do, I have headphones on, I listen to a podcast, but sometimes now I take them off and I stand there and I listen and I hear rustling some leaves and it's a squirrel. I hear something else. I smell better. I didn't smell that. How can headphones on cause me not to smell that earthy smell?
It does, though.
It does.
It takes attention.
So for me, I go, in this moment,
that's
my
great.
feet and my head are in the same spot. And so that's kind of a goal of mine now. And that even in when I'm with my grandchildren, with my kids or my daughter or with friends, I go, how can I really be in this moment? Because there is never, ever in the history past or in the future, going to be another moment exactly like this.
That's so true. And this is such a wild part of this conversation because that is one of my primary goals in life, but for a whole different subset of reasons. So it's wild to hear yours. And yours are extremely wise and inspiring. So I feel like I'm just going to add all those reasons onto my reasons. But I read a long time ago from Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And then later on I came across Sam Harris, which is another good one. He designed the Waking Up app and has written a lot about meditation and states, and he's a neuroscientist. But anyway, one interesting thing that's true, that everyone knows is true, is all we ever have is the present moment. Mm-hmm. Everything in the past was comprised of present moments, and everything that will happen in the future will only be comprised of present moments. So the idea of controlling anything that's not in your proximity or in the same time as you is absolutely futile. Other than directing yourself in a future direction, an orientation. Like, okay, we're not just going to go down this path of terrible ideas. We're going to go this way. But just realizing all of your power in the present moment, and that's where your life is. That's where it always is. It was yesterday and it will be tomorrow also. It is kind of a cool thing to realize. And for me, I have these selfish reasons too, is I've observed that time passes more slowly because I love this life. I mean, I love this life. I always have. I'm super optimistic, and even when shit goes terribly wrong, I'm like, yes, this is cool. Right? It doesn't matter to me. It's all amazing. I'm so happy to be here. I feel grateful every day to be here. Always have. And it's not because I'm super smart. I just got lucky that way. Sure. But so I like time to pass very slowly. And I've noticed when you're not where your feet are, like you say, that time disappears. You don't remember anything when you're not in the same space as you are with your body. Like if me and you are sitting here right now talking, but my mind's actually thinking about something somewhere else, I'm not going to remember this. Not even tomorrow I won't remember most of this. So it'll seem like time has gone by. Like
it seems dangerous to not be present. And maybe not physically dangerous, maybe physically dangerous. I mean, obviously if I run a chainsaw a lot. I cut trees. I block trees out. We cut firewood.
That's a bad time to lose your focus.
Sure. Yeah. So once again, I love word pictures, but even dangerous in that if someone's telling you something that's important and you're not in that moment and you're kind of just blah 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 blah, and then you miss it. It could be dangerous for your relationship. It could be dangerous for their life. It could be dangerous for. They could be telling you something that's important. And the word picture I think about is how many times it changes now because of the landscape. But how many times have you ever driven to Indianapolis and thought, "Have I passed Tipton yet?" And you're like going,
that's right.
So you're like, I don't even know where I'm at. And you go, oh my God, how long have I been driving? And I don't even know, did I pass the Tipton Junction or, and so even at that you go, that's not good. It's not good for you're driving an automobile. And I think about in life, even the dangers of life, if you are not present,
the world passes you by.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that if you miss them, it could be detrimental. Maybe that's a better word than dangerous, but it could be detrimental to you to not be present.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, there's too much to miss, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to think of an example like where it would be a good idea to be just completely unconscious of your...
At the dentist.
Maybe.
I don't want to be thinking about what that drill's doing in there.
I don't know. I can't think of. I think if you actually think it through, like putting all of your attention into any experience is probably beneficial.
Oh, I think it.
I think even if you were in prison, you could still the path to having the best existence wouldn't be avoidance.
Yeah,
It would be.
it's not the best. It's easier, and that's why we do it.
You think?
I mean, it's easier to be at a funeral and to think about the best times with that person instead of thinking about the reality of it.
I agree that it seems easier. I don't know that a lot of these things that seem easier actually are if you just expand the scope of time, like long term. Like watching TV seems easy instead of working out, but just walking up a flight of stairs 6 months later might be difficult now. So watching TV actually is quite difficult when you can't walk upstairs anymore.
Yep.
So I think a lot of things are like that. And it's this goes back to what we talked about earlier with vulnerability too. I think really the answer is that the truth doesn't hurt you. The reality, the right now, whatever it is, it's way better. It's where all your power lies. Because when you're talking about the present moment, really you're talking about the only truth that you know for sure exists.
Yeah. Because later when I retell it, I could change it.
Right. Yeah, the past is not reliable. The future is uncertain. Yeah. So,
yeah, I could go to somebody else and say, oh yeah, when I was with Dustin and he had a milkshake for me there, and no one knows or whatever, and I could say whatever I want. But the truth is that what that actual moment is and the truth is. When the whole term came out, alternative truth.
What the hell does that mean? That's called a lie, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but that was.
What is the alternative to truth?
That was a big thing with political, and
I've never heard this. That might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Look it up. And yeah,
are people going to get mad at me for thinking that's dumb? Is that important to people?
I'm glad you don't know it, but it was a term used, and it was politically used, and
did they put forward a different alternative to truth than lie?
But the thing is, it's a manipulative way to skew or to cloud your thoughts, and then eventually it's unclear, and then the loudest truth, in finger quotes, becomes the one that's remembered. And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in society right now. Is that people are convinced certain things are true, and they propagate them and tell them, and then it becomes truth to a lot of people, and you're like going,
yeah, you're right. I've noticed this. There is the fact that like you get to have a subjective experience, and you get to make your own judgments in your own subjective experience, and you get to decide whether or not those are real in your experience. And I think people confuse that for getting to decide what's real for everyone else and what's real outside of you. Because you can have a subjective experience that is real, that relies on things that don't line up with reality outside of you. But
those are feelings. And so you may experience the exact same thing, but how you feel about it, and your feelings are valid. But
valid doesn't mean that they're true or accurate.
If you went and you heard a polka concert, polka music.
God, they have concerts for that.
Well, if they did,
yeah.
And then someone said, that made me sad.
Yeah.
You're not going, what?
Yeah.
The freaking polka music.
Right.
No one's sad at the.
I think that's where the confusion lies, because that is a fact that you felt sad.
Sure, and it's valid.
And that fact is true. But it doesn't say anything about polka music.
Yeah, it's
at all.
And so that's where the idea that because I feel this way, this must be true.
Right.
And it's not.
Well, not only is it not, there's no evidence to support that it would be. And if you apply any basic logic, it's very clear it's inconsistent.
Well, here's two facts. one fact is it was polka music. One fact, you were sad. It's okay for them both to be true.
Yeah.
And so I just think that some people want things to be true. It's just like a lot of conspiracy theories and things. They want
They think they can make them true.
Well, you want it so bad to be true, and that you.
And I think that's the mistake. That's why I was saying earlier, like the truth actually doesn't hurt you. It always helps you. And I feel like sometimes when I see somebody caught up in this thing, like where they want something to be true, so they're trying to convince themselves and other people that it actually is true. I don't want to like kick them down and be like destroy them, as they say on the internet, because I can prove that they're just wrong. But I don't want to do that. What I want to show those people is whatever truth it is that you're hiding from is better than the one you're trying to make. You're just scared of it. If you walk right into it.
It's not a new phenomenon. I don't know what year it's written, but it's very old. There's a book called The Emperor's New Clothes.
Oh, yeah. I've read that 100 times.
So
for my daughter.
Yeah. So it became truth that everybody said, "Oh, what a fabulous robe!" And people were, "Oh, did you see the emperor's crown? Did you see the emperor's?" And you go,
"Can you describe it for people listening that might not know
the
how the
emperor's
story
new clothes
goes?"
was? I mean, there was an emperor that wanted new clothes and new things made, and nothing was going to be good enough for him, and nothing was going to be extravagant enough for him, and so the tailors eventually did nothing. They made nothing, air clothes, the clothes that were nothing,
and they sent him out naked.
They sent him out basically naked,
yeah.
and then they said, "Oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful clothes and robe and outfit in the world." And then everybody else, being afraid that it was the king or the emperor, and they said, "Oh my gosh, look at that!" And so people began to say, and they all knew it was that he was naked, but no one wanted to tell him the truth.
Right? Wasn't the crux of it that if there was someone who couldn't see the magic clothes, that there was something wrong with them?
Yeah, something's wrong.
So no one wanted to admit.
No, because you didn't want to admit the truth because then you were wrong and you were different. And
you're right. That is a very good adaptation of what's happening in Western society right now in a lot of ways.
Sure, and so people go. I don't really know how I feel about this, but everybody else feels this way, so I got to at least act like I feel this way about this. And the moral of the story is, just so everybody knows, all the parading you can do around in false truth, sooner or later somebody yells, just like in the story. Yeah, he's not wearing magic clothes; he's naked. Yeah, and then everybody's like, "Oh shit, I knew it. Yeah, I knew it wasn't true." Yeah, and then because they begin to believe that. If I think he's naked, or I don't think he's got any clothes on, then I'm the only one that thinks that, it's a kind of a crowdsourcing kind of an idea. But right now, that happens a lot just in society and a lot in how people view things, and it spreads. It spreads a lot, you go. Sometimes in life, we got to go. Nope, you're naked.
Yeah.
Nope.
And that's okay.
It is, but we go, nope, you're naked. And
right.
What do you think about my new coat? Nope, dude, you're naked.
Yeah, and the truth about the truth, ironically, is that it's actually always better. Like if you really just go for it, it will be better than you imagine.
It's absolute. Truth is absolute.
It's hard to find the truth, but you can be sure you've found like something that isn't true and not participate in that. I think that's a key.
Yeah, because some do that knowingly and some doing out of ignorance.
Wow, that's hard to believe sometimes. But it's not impossible to believe because we've stopped teaching. Like a lot of people don't even realize they speak in a method of reason. And we think in sort of a broken method of logic. Because we got that from the Greeks and it's made its way down. But we're not really taught logic anymore, how to sequence and check for consistency, which is a great way to find out when something is complete horseshit. Because you can make, good rhetoric and good persuasive language can make completely nonsense things seem extremely sensible. But that's why people knowing how to steel man an argument and think about things from both ways and test for logic and ask questions about things is so important. And like we talked about earlier, and have a desire to do so to make sure they're not repeating something that's not true. That whole process seems to be leaving us as a culture, and that worries me.
Yeah, because once again, it's laziness. And if I listen to your podcast and you repeatedly say 4 plus 3 is 8 repeatedly, and I hear that enough times, and then I eventually go, yeah, I don't know. I used to think 4 plus 2 was 7, but he says it's 8, and so I'm just, maybe it is 8. And instead of me going, you know what, I got a calculator out, Dustin, and I've done this.
Yeah.
I've done it a lot of different ways, and 4 plus 3 is 7.
But when you say laziness, what you're really saying is apathy that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I don't care if it. You know what? Actually, that's not important enough for me to even care about.
I think that is part of it. It's the apathy about it.
Yeah, I do believe that. There's a quote that says, "Never compromise when truth can be found."
You think it's an obligation?
Well, it's if we're having a discussion and it becomes a strong discussion and it becomes an argument, and you're saying 4 plus 3 is 8, and I go, Dustin, 4 plus, and we can do this for an hour, and you can say, look, and you can figure it out, and you can, however, and we're talking about that, and then finally we just go, you know what? You can think your way, I'll think my way. That's that compromise. You can believe what you want to believe now, and I go, yeah, and because we agree to disagree.
Right.
But if the truth can really be found, then compromise is lazy.
I agree.
So instead we go, you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's both get calculators out. Let's look this up, and we go, and we go. Actually, this is the truth. It is 7, and you go, I was wrong.
Yeah, we use some evidence.
Yeah,
right.
and you go, I was wrong, and I go, yeah, it's no big deal. It's an easy mistake to make, or whatever. And so and then we move on.
But the calculator's broken.
yeah. And, so I just think that
I think you're right. I think we're obligated. And there's been I guess if I have a regret over the last few years, 5 years probably, it's been that I spoke up less. I spoke up less when I've seen things, I still see things that are just wrong.
Tell me the quote, you know it, about what happens when good men do nothing.
When good men do nothing. I don't know the quote.
I mean, that's evil wins when when good men do nothing, and that's not speaking up, and that's not.
I think that's right.
And so
it took me a second. It caught me on my heels for a second, though. I lived in this whole past life of reason, logic, truth-seeking evidence, and it seemed like the rest of the country, the rest of the world was on board with the reality I was living in too. And then COVID hit and strange ideologies happened, and I don't even know what happened because I was paying attention to my life stuff, and all of a sudden there's just insanity around me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, either I'm crazy or half the world's gone crazy. What's happening? So I got quiet for a while.
I've got several friends, but one friend in particular who has autism. And I find his friendship incredibly refreshing. You know why?
Why?
I walk up and I say, hey, how are you? He says, you got spinach on your teeth.
Yeah. He's not going to shoot you wrong.
No, and he's not trying to hurt my feelings or what. That's a fact. And I got spinach on my teeth. And it just, so there's a bluntness about, about stuff like that. And I go, dude, I don't take any offense. There's no malice. Just, and honestly, I go, yeah, I don't want spinach in my teeth.
I was thinking of your example you just gave about the autism thing. I think there's the secret lies in there. I think we've sort of lost this because in your example, you don't feel any malice from this person. as humans, we're suspicious of each other. Like, what is your intention? Are you manipulating
That's the
me?
key.
What are you trying to do to me, kind of thing? And, you know, when everybody sort of has the vibe that we're all cooperating together to create a better future, there's less of that. And it becomes easier to tell somebody a truth they don't want to hear because they don't take it too damn deep. Like me and you are friends. I can tell you have spinach in your teeth.
Yep.
And you'll be like, oh, thanks, bro.
Yeah, right.
Help me out. But there is a situation that's all too common now to where people will run around and be like, this motherfucker's got spinach in his teeth.
All day long. I've seen him 3 times. And you go, you
Yeah.
didn't tell him?
Oh, not even that. Like, if somebody does tell you, like, people will be suspicious. He's trying to make me feel insecure, or he's trying to make me look stupid, or
Right.
what is it he's trying to do right now? Yeah, that mutual respect is what lends itself to
And-
conversation. You have to be able to trust people, so
Sure.
you have to give them a reason to trust you. We have to have these conversations to give each other a chance, to show each other's dignity, and to respect each other.
If you have a history of decent intention,
Yeah.
okay, have grandbabies, they're getting a little older now. When they were younger, if one of my grandbabies said, Papa, your breath stinks, guess what? My breath stinks.
Yeah, right.
Or they go,
That's the truth.
Oh, that's the truth. And they're not trying to hurt my feelings. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
And then I got to choose to brush my teeth or eat a mint or something, or be mad at them about that.
Right.
And if I'm mad about it, I'm mad about the truth. And then that's on me.
God,
not
that's
on them.
brilliant. You just described the problem with the last 5 years in the West. Everybody's mad about the truth.
Yeah.
That's the people you see suffering, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what they're mad about. They're mad because they created a disagreement with the truth, and they can't seem to change what's true.
And as Jack Nicholson said in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. and it's so. But once again, for me, it's all about intention. And once again, it's if you have a history of malice, a history of bad intention, it'll get taken wrong and it won't go over well. But if you got a history just in life of and how you present it, and there's just a lot about presentation, and so I just want to be one who can see the truth, and when I can't see it, can accept the truth, and then it's up to me about what I do with that truth.
That's great. That's perfect prescription. It's probably a good place to end. I'm really glad you came and we had this conversation. I was really hoping I meant to just have you say some of your aphorisms so we could talk about them, but we went right off into this conversation.
And I like that because it flows, and I think generally it's circular. We come back to a vulnerability. We come back to a mutual respect. We come back to an idea that conversation is good.
Yeah, that one, it definitely went really well. I do want people to check out your aphorisms, though. So how do they find you? Facebook, where you like to go?
Yeah. So Facebook, I do on Facebook, and I do Instagram. So, and both of them are just Kevin Sprinkle at Instagram and on Facebook. And I try to share those, and hopefully it will make you think, or it will. If nothing, if it doesn't make you think, it's helping me. So that's a win-win.
Yeah. I'll link it in the comments or something. Great, man. Thanks for coming and doing this.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dustin. All right.